very interesting right now. Oh man, I need to drink some coffee. It is 9:20. I should have been ordered some coffee. So I am going to read Genesis 21 through 25. Waiting on some people to come on. Welcome, welcome, welcome in as you join. Waiting on at least 3 to 5 people to join before I start, so we can get good into the story together. I have these affirmations that I like to read, so I'm gonna read them on here. I need to read my other things too. I said I was gonna read this every day. It's my desires of life, how I desire my life to be. So I'm gonna read that before I get everyone to join. So this is all about just positive things, positive life, positive affirmations, positive journaling, just being positive. I know right now, look, whatever, I gotta do my hair, but it is what it is. Okay, so I'm gonna read these affirmations real quick for prosperity. God is my unfailing supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly under grace and perfect ways. For right conditions. As not planned shall be dissolved and dissipated, and the divine idea now comes to pass. Only that which is true of God is true of me, for I and the Father are one. As I am one with God, I am one with my good, for God is both the giver and the gift. I cannot separate the giver from the gift. Divine love now dissolves and dissipates every wrong condition in my mind, body, and affairs. Divine love is the most powerful chemical in the universe and dissolves everything which is not of itself. Divine love floods my consciousness with health, and every cell in my body is filled with light. My eyes are God's eyes. I see with the eyes of spirit. I see clearly the open way. There are no obstacles in my pathway. I see clearly the perfect plan. My ears are God's ears. I hear with the ears of spirit. I am non-resistant and willing to be led. I hear glad tidings of great joy. I am divinely sensitive to my intuitive leads, and I give instant obedience to thy will. I have perfect work in a perfect way. I give perfect service for perfect pay. I cast this burden on the Christ within, and I go free. So, I'm going to now read my daily desires in life. I'm just gonna put on this sports bra back on or something. I don't know. I'm trying to be covered up, but I don't have a lot of cover up stuff. I was in a bathing suit. I was at the pool. All right, one sec. Okay, let me read this real quick. Okay, so I'm so happy and grateful now. I live in my dream home. I'm gonna read Genesis chapters 21 through 25 in just a moment. I'm gonna read this real quick to myself. Then we're gonna start breaking down chapters 21 through 26, 25, 21 through 25. I live in my dream home. Okay. All right, y'all. So let's get to it. I'm not religious, so before you even start that, I am not religious. I am a positive person. I like to smile and be happy and talk peace on people. Religious people sometimes get mad and say angry, evil things to people to condemn them and judge them. I don't do that. All right, so let's get started. Once again, I am not religious. I am spiritual. I am a positive person. I don't claim any religion. Okay, so let's get to it. And the Most High visited Sarah as he had said. I don't know where my glasses at. The Most High visited Sarah as he had said, and Most High did for Sarah as he had spoken. So Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the appointed time of which Elohim had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, Yitzchak. That is Hebrew for Isaac, Yitzchak. And Abraham circumcised his son Yitzchak when he was 8 days old, as Elohim had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Yitzchak was born to him. And Sarah said, Elohim has made me laugh, and everyone who hears of it laughs with me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on that day that Yitzchak was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Mitzrite, whom she had borne to Abraham, mocking. So she said to Abraham, drive out this woman servant and her son, for the son of this female servant shall not inherit with my son, with Yitzchak. And the matter was very evil in the eyes of Abraham because of his son. But Elohim said to Abraham, let it not be evil in your eyes because of the boy and because of your female servant. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice. For in Yitzchak your seed is called. And of the son of the female servant I also make a nation, because he is your seed. And Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water, which he gave to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, also the boy, and sent her away. And she left and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water in the skin was used up. And she placed the boy under one of the shrubs. And she went and sat down about bow shots away, for she said, let me not see the death of the boy. And she sat opposite him and lifted her voice and wept. And Elohim heard the voice of the boy. And the messenger of Elohim called to Hagar from the heavens and said to her, what is the matter with you, Hagar? Do not fear, for Elohim has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Arise, lift up the boy, and hold him with your hand, for I make a great nation of him. And Elohim opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin of water and gave the boy a drink. So right there, like, because she was in a low state of mind, she was thinking about things in a negative way, she was upset. The upsetness, it distorted her sight. She was so stuck in her mind, in her inner world, and thinking about the negative part of life, that she couldn't see that there was a well right in front of her. So once she heard the messages in her head, tell her, look, everything's going to be all right. And then it says God opened her eyes, meaning as soon as she wept, it calmed her down enough to pay attention. Once she was able to pay attention, she was able to see that she was not going to pass and the boy was going to live. Verse 20. And Elohim was with the boy, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran. and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Mitzrayim. And it came to be at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, spoke to Abraham, saying, Elohim is with you in all that you do. And now swear to me by Elohim not to be untrue to me, to my offspring, or to my descendants. Do to me according to the loving commitment that I have done to you and to the land in which you have sojourned. And Abraham said, I swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well of water which Abimelech's servants had seized. And Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this deed. Neither did you inform me, nor did I hear until today. So Abraham took sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech asked Abraham, what are these 7 ewe lambs which you have set them by themselves? And he said, take these 7 lambs from my hand to be my witness that I have dug this well. So he called that place Beersheba because the two of them swore an oath there. So Abimelech said, Elohim is with you in all that you do. Swear to me by Elohim not to be untrue to me, to my offspring, or to my descendants, to do to me according to the loving commitment that I have done to you and to the land which you have sojourned. Okay, so they were looking to get a covenant there. It says, thus they made a covenant at Beersheba, and Abimelech rose with Phicol, the commander of his army, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. And he planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there called on the name of the Most High, the everlasting El, and Abraham sojourned in the land of the Philistines many days. Okay, so my son has my my other phone right now, because he is creating his own YouTube so that he can make his own residual income for himself at the age of 7 going on 8. So I have to use my computer here to pull up some research to really get the breakdown and the understanding of what this message was back then. The thing is, I like to do my research of the history and get the spiritual meaning of things so that we know how to use the moral of these situations into the present day time, into modern day. Okay, so thank you so much for the compliments. Thank you for the positivity. Thank you guys for engaging in the lives. I appreciate y'all. Okay, so just give me 2 seconds. I'm going to pull up, let's see, Genesis, and that was chapter 21. Yes, that was chapter 21. So Genesis. I want them to break down and give understanding to Abimelech's character and the covenant with Abraham. Okay, so let's figure that out, and then we're going to continue. So it says, this is about promise, separation, inheritance, and peace through covenant. On the surface, it records the birth of Isaac, the departure of Hagar and Ishmael, and Abraham's covenant with Abimelech. And it also portrays the transition from human effort to God's promise and from striving to peaceful authority. God fulfills his promise to Abraham and Sarah. Sarah, once barren, gives birth to Isaac, which means he laughs. God's timing is never late. God's promises don't depend on human ability. Isaac is the promised heir. So it's like every person's name has a specific meaning based on that part of their lives, or the part of the parents' lives at that time that they gave birth. And I believe that that actually happens still to this day. You should actually look up the meaning of your name. I would say Google the meaning of your name, or even the Hebrew meaning of your name, to understand your true character. And you'll see that even in your name, before you were even thought about, or right before you were born, you had already been given a name that it resonates with your character and who you are, because that your name is being named on the spirit of you, because that was the spirit that your parents were in when they gave birth to you, when they conceived you and gave birth to you. So all of us have the spirit of God within. God is a spirit. So as you're alive, the spirit of life is God. The flesh is just the deadly flesh. Without spirit, you have no life. That is death. So again, when they're naming these people, they're naming their character. This is your character in this world, is based off of your name. So when you really Google and research the meanings behind your names, you'll understand who you really are. And it'll help you maneuver a little bit better in life when you become more aware of it. So the fact that they named him Isaac, which means he laughs, they named him based on he will laugh. He is a laugher. He is very full of joy. So this is his character from birth, is that the spirit of him was what God gave the spirit of Sarah, is that she laughed. Much love and respect, support always. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so God's timing is never late. God's promises don't depend on human ability, and Isaac is the promised heir. Sarah represents promise, grace, and faith. The new creation, the promises of God, the life born by the Spirit. Okay. Before Isaac comes, striving ends, waiting ends, and barrenness ends. God births something impossible. So she was 99 years old, I believe, or 90 years old, something like that. And she gave birth to a child, even though she had already, her menstrual was gone. Sarah sees Ishmael mocking Isaac. She tells Abraham, cast out the bondwoman and her son. God tells Abraham to listen. So she was the boss. Isaac alone receives the covenant inheritance. God still protects Ishmael. This is one of the scripture's clearest things to say, is Paul explains it in epistle to the Galatians. Hagar represents the old covenant, law, slavery, flesh, human effort. Sarah represents grace, promise, freedom. Ishmael represents works of the flesh, self-effort, what humans produce without waiting on God. Isaac represents faith, promise, the spirit. The lesson is you cannot inherit God's promise by fleshly striving. God provides for Ishmael. Hagar cries, God hears, a well appears. Even when people make mistakes, God remains compassionate. The wilderness often represents seasons of testing, loneliness, dependence on God. The hidden well represents living provision that was already present. Living provision that was already present but unseen until God opened Hagar's eyes. Sometimes God doesn't create a new answer. He reveals the one that was already there. Abimelech comes to Abraham. This is where many people stop reading quickly, but it carries rich symbolism. Abimelech approaches Abraham. He says, God is with you in everything you do. Notice something. Abraham never asked for this meeting. Abimelech came to him. Abimelech wants peace. He recognizes that God blesses Abraham. He wants a covenant so Abraham will not harm him or his descendants. Abraham agrees, but first addresses a dispute over a well. They settled the matter with 7 lambs. The place is named Beersheba. There's an understanding. Abimelech represents the world recognizing God's favor on a faithful person and seeking peaceful relationship rather than conflict. He is not portrayed here as an enemy attacking Abraham. Instead, he sees that God's presence with Abraham is undeniable. Spiritually, Abimelech can symbolize earthly authorities, outside systems, surrounding culture, people who do not share Abraham's covenant but recognize God's blessing on him. He comes because he sees evidence, not because of Abraham's demanded recognition. One lesson is that consistent faithfulness can earn respect even from those outside one's community. He says God is with you. Notice he doesn't ask, who is your God? He already knows. He says, I've seen him working. This illustrates that visible integrity and blessing can become a testimony. The well. The servants had seized Abraham's well. A well represents life, revelation, the Holy Spirit, ongoing provision. Without a well, there is no sustained life in the wilderness. Abraham insists on resolving the issue by finalizing the covenant. A lasting relationship is built on truth, not unresolved injustice. Abraham gives 7 lambs. 7 often symbolizes completeness, fullness, covenant perfection. The lambs serve as a witness that Abraham dug the well. This points to a covenant established with clear testimony. Beersheba means either well of the oath or well of 7, reflecting the oath and the 7 lambs. The place becomes associated throughout Scripture with covenant and settled inheritance. Abraham plants a tamarisk tree. This may seem like a small detail, but is significant. Trees often symbolize stability, endurance, long-term legacy. The tamarisk is slow growing and long-lived. Abraham plants for future generations, not just for immediate needs. This reflects confidence that God's promise will endure. He calls upon the everlasting God. The Hebrew title is El Olam. This emphasizes that while kings, disputes, and reasons change, God's covenant remains constant. Overall, allegorical flow is God brings forth what he promised. Human striving is separated from divine promise. God still shows mercy to those outside the covenant line. Even outsiders recognize God's hand on the faithful. Peace is established through truth and covenant. Abraham settles into the land with confidence in the everlasting God. One practical takeaway is that God's promises are not merely private experiences. As the narrative suggests, faithful living can become visible enough that others acknowledge it. Abraham doesn't chase recognition from Abimelech. Rather, Abimelech comes because he has observed that God is with you. The chapter ends not with conflict, but with Abraham rooted in the land, worshiping El Olam, the everlasting God, after establishing peace without compromising what rightfully belonged to him. Hey there, young lady. Just stopping by to show you some love. Hey, thank you so much. And no, I just took my wig off because I was hot and sweaty last night from work. So, I put the hat on because my hair has not been washed yet because I have to wash it tonight because I just went on a run. So I didn't want to do my hair and then sweat my hair out by running. So I decided to keep the hat on until I wash it tonight. Okay. So let's continue to read. So basically, I love that it said that. I didn't know where Abimelech came from in this, but the way he approached Abraham was on like some respect type vibes. Like he know this man is old of age. He know that his wife is old of age, and they just had a baby. So he's like, God is with you in whatever you do. That is God's work. So he's like showing respect, and he's like, I want to make a covenant with you. I don't want to have any beef. I don't want no smoke. All right. I want us to be cool. I want us to vibe and connect and everything be cool, because I don't want to have to be punished by anything that happens because I was being weird. So he's basically like, yes, I want to make a covenant to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. All right, so chapter 22. And it came to be after these events that Elohim, there we go, tried Abraham and said to Abraham, and he said, here I am. And he said, take your son now, your only son, Yitzhak, which is Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as an ascending offering on one of the mountains which I command you. Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him, and Yitzhak his son, and he split the wood for an ascending offering and rose and went to the place which Elohim had commanded him. And the 3rd day Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place from a distance. So Abraham said to his young men, stay here with the donkey while the boy and I go over there and worship and come back to you. And Abraham took the wood of the ascending offering and laid it on Yitzhak his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and took 2 of them and the 2 of them went together. And Yitzhak spoke to Abraham his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am, my son. And he said, see the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for an offering? And Abraham said, my son, Elohim does provide for himself the lamb for an offering. And the 2 of them went together. And they came to the place which Elohim had commanded him, and Abraham built a slaughter place there and placed the wood in order. And he bound Yitzhak his son and laid him on the slaughter place upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the messenger of the Most High called to him from the heavens and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, here I am. And he said, do not lay your hand on the boy, nor touch him, for now I know that you fear Elohim, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And Abraham lifted his eyes and looked and saw behind him a ram caught in a bush by its thorns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up an ascending offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place Most High Jireh, as it is said to this day, on the mountain the Most High provides. And the messenger of the Most High called to the Abraham a second time from the heavens and said, by myself I have sworn, declares the Most High, because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, that I shall certainly bless you, and I shall certainly increase your seed as the stars of the heavens, and as the sand which is on the seashore, and let your seed possess the gate of their enemies. And in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. Then Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. And it came to be that after these events, that it was reported to Abraham, saying, see, Milcah too has borne children to your brother Nahor, Utes his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Chemel the father of Aram, and Kesed, and Hazel, and Pildash, and Jidlaph, and Bethuel, and Bethuel brought forth Ribkah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. So Ribkah is Rebecca in English, but this is my Hebrew translation. And his concubine, whose name was Reumah, also bore Tibah and Gaham and Tahash and Makkah. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 22. All right, so I'm going to ask you to break down chapter 22, but I want to just put my insight on why would the Most High do that? Why would the Most High jump into this man, speak to this man and say, why would he test him that way to say, unalive your own son that I told you I was going to bless you with? You waited till you was okay, let me get my emotions together. He wanted a seed when he was young. He took it upon himself to create seed with the servant Hagar, because Sarah was like, you know what, I want you to have your seed. I can't have babies. Have one with Hagar. Hagar gets casted away later because Sarah's like, I'm not having it. The disrespect. She waits to do that after she has her baby. The Most High allows it because he's like, you know what, I blessed you with this son. So he's like, don't worry, Sarah's gonna have a baby. That's the true covenant. You and your wife, they're about to have a baby. So I'm gonna bless you with this baby at old age. Nobody believes him. He still doesn't. Everything works out. They have a baby at old age, right? The firstborn, which isn't even allowed to be the firstborn, gets casted out. The Most High says, yeah, cast him out. I gave you your real lineage here. This is your real lineage with this baby. Why later he says, go up, take the kid to the mountains and sacrifice him? Why would he test him like that to see, I want to see if you really gonna do this or not. Are you really willing to do this? And then stops him mid getting ready to strike his own son. He stops him and says, no, don't do it. I just wanted to see how loyal you were. She should be covering reading the word like that is respect to the Most High, but she'll have she'll have a problem with that. I'm not covered enough. My goodies are covered. I don't know what else to tell you. And I got my head covered. They said cover your head when you read. But I'm not religious. So religion tells you to cover up. I'm not religious. I'm just reading a book. I'm just reading a book of stories. Okay. All right. Genesis is one of the most profound chapters in the Bible. It is about faith, surrender, trust, substitution, prophetic foreshadowing, and God's provision. While it records Abraham's willingness to offer Isaac, many readers also see it as pointing ahead to the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. While it records Abraham's willingness to offer Isaac, many readers also see it as pointing ahead to the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Take now your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love. Notice the progression. Your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac. God names the attachment before he names the person. God is testing Abraham's faith, not because God lacks knowledge, but because the test reveals the depth of Abraham's trust. God never intended Isaac to die. The test was whether Abraham trusted God's promise more than the gift itself. That's beautiful. Isaac represents God's promises, your calling, your dreams, the blessings God has given. The question becomes, do you love the giver more than the gift? The question is, do you love the giver more than the gift? I'm going to ask that one more time because everything is good in threes. The question is, do you love the giver more than you love the gift? Can I get a yes from somebody? Do you love the giver more than you love the gift? No? Nobody? Sometimes God asks us to surrender something, not because he wants to take it away, but because he wants to know whether it has become an idol. Not because he wants to take it away, but because he wants to know whether it has become an idol. Why Mount Moriah? God specifically tells Abram to go to Mount Moriah. This location later becomes deeply significant because the area is associated with the site where Solomon built the temple. Many Christians also connect this region with the area where Jesus was later crucified, though the exact locations are distinct. Nothing in Scripture is accidental. God often prepares places long before their fullest purpose is revealed. Abraham doesn't argue. He rises early. He obeys immediately. That doesn't necessarily mean the journey was emotionally easy. It reflects decisive trust. 3-day journey. Abraham travels 3 days. 3 often symbolizes, I just said everything is good in threes. 3 often symbolizes completion, resurrection, transition. For 3 days, Abraham carries the expectation that Isaac may be sacrificed. Abraham for 3 days carries the expectation that Isaac may be sacrificed. Some interpreters see this as foreshadowing the 3 days between Jesus' death and resurrection. We will come back. Abraham tells the servants, "Stay here, the boy and I will go, and we will come back." This is remarkable. The writer of epistle to the Hebrews explains that Abraham believed God could even raise Isaac from the dead because God's promise depended on Isaac living. Faith speaks beyond visible circumstances. I'm getting chills, y'all. Isaac carries the wood. Isaac carries the wood for the sacrifice. Many Christians see a parallel with Jesus carrying his cross. Isaac willingly walks beside his father. The wood represents sacrifice, obedience, surrender. Sometimes the very thing that feels heavy becomes part of God's work in our lives. Wow. Isaac asks, "Where's the lamb?" This question echoes through scriptures. Where is the lamb? Abraham answers, God himself will provide the lamb. Y'all, this right here, I needed to hear this. This statement reaches beyond Isaac's immediate situation. It expresses confidence that God will supply what is needed. Many Christians also understand it as anticipating Jesus, whom the New Testament calls the Lamb of God. Abraham binds Isaac. Isaac is likely old enough to resist. Yet the narrative presents him as submitting. This highlights both Abraham's obedience and Isaac's willingness. Abraham represents a father willing to surrender what he loves. Isaac represents trusting obedience. Together, they picture surrender to God's will. The angels call Abraham, Abraham. God intervenes before the sacrifice is completed. Why? God never desired Isaac's death. The purpose was the revelation of Abraham's faith. This distinguishes Israel's God from surrendering cultures that practice child sacrifice. Abraham looks up. A ram is caught in a thicket. The ram is sacrificed instead of Isaac. This is a substitution. The innocent dies so another may live. The Christians, for Christians, this points forward to Jesus' sacrificial death. Why a ram and not a lamb? Isaac asked, "Where is the lamb?" A ram appears instead. Some Christians, some Christian interpreters see the answer completed centuries later when Jesus is identified as the Lamb of God. Jehovah Jireh. Abraham names the place. The Lord will provide. So Jehovah Jireh means the Lord will provide. That's the name of the place that they went to, and he was tested for his sacrifice. The Hebrew idea carries the sense that God sees and provides what is needed. God's provision often arrives at the moment it is required, not necessarily in advance. The angel speaks again. God says, "Because you have not withheld your son, your only son." God reaffirms the covenant. Descendants will multiply. Enemies' gates will be possessed. All nations will be blessed. Notice the pattern. The promise existed before the test, but after the test, it is reaffirmed. Possess the gates of their enemies. In the ancient world, a city's gates represented authority, leadership, justice, and control. Possessing the gate can symbolize overcoming obstacles and gaining influence where decisions are made. The overall meaning. Genesis 22 can be understood as a journey of faith. God tests trust. Abraham surrenders what is most precious. God provides a substitute. The covenant is reaffirmed. God's provision is revealed in the place of obedience. The chapter moves from testing to surrender, from apparent loss to divine provision, and from obedience to renewed promise. A personal reflection. Genesis 22 asks a searching question. Is your confidence ultimately in God's gift or in God himself? Is your confidence ultimately in God's gift or in God himself? Abraham's story suggests that mature faith is not the absence of difficult tests, but the willingness to trust God's character even when his purposes are not yet clear. The climax of the chapter is not Isaac's near sacrifice. It is the revelation that God provides, often at the very point where human resources and understanding come to an end. That was an amazing breakdown of that chapter. So that was Genesis chapter 22 breakdown. And I am very humbled and emotionally, like I have chills right now. Like the hair, I don't know if y'all can see the hairs on my arms standing up. Like I literally have chills right now just realizing the pattern of life and how from the beginning Abraham had to take his son, his only son who he loved, and he was tested to sacrifice him, to give up his only son. So then going on to these different stories and then going up to Jesus where he said, or Yeshua, as he said, you go up to Yeshua, he said he gave Yeshua his son, his only son, who he loved for the world. So it's like, whoa, that blew my mind just now. That was amazing. Wow. So, and it's like you already know this stuff, but I never caught that. He said, take your son, your only son, whom you love. I didn't ever catch that part until just now. Wow, right? I'm going to tell it to take out Christianity and just give the full, because everyone's not Christians, but this book is a universal book. Everyone reads out of this book. So I don't want to hear right now there's no Jew, no Gentile, no male, no female. When it comes to this book, there's no color, there's no gender, there's nothing but is. We are all of the human race. So anyone that gets together with me, we are all coexisting. I'm just going to tell you that right now. We're not talking about Christianity. We are not talking about religion. I am not religious because that is a group of people who are deciding that they're going to believe a portion of this book. And I believe in the whole book. This is all stories that you're supposed to take in, and it's supposed to be for spiritual uplifting, to use into your character for the modern day. Okay, so all that stuff that happened in the past, it happened in the past, that is buried and gone. What we're doing is using the morals behind these stories in order to become better people for ourselves. All right, and that's how I read. So we're gonna take out the Christianity, and we're non-denominational here. Excuse me, our lips. I need to put some chapstick on. My lips a little chapped from talking a lot, and I need to drink some water. So I'm gonna get a water bottle real quick. Hold on, y'all. All right, I got me a water bottle on the way. I actually have read the Apocrypha, and thank you so much, my handsome boy.
You're welcome.
I have read the Apocrypha, and the Apocrypha that I have is so old, it's torn to pieces. I need to order a new one because I would love to read the Apocrypha with you guys as well. But I don't like the ones, I would want to read it just like I read this one. This one has Hebrew names, Hebrew cities, like it says it in the original version. Even though it speaks English, it still it has a lot of the traditional Hebrew things that it says in here. So if I order a new Apocrypha book, I will order one that has it that way. All that thee, thou, thy, I don't get down with that, because I believe that they purposely did that to try to it's a mockery to me. The King James version, those thee, thys, and thous, I don't get down like that. Ooh, that was some good water. Spring water, y'all. I need to charge it, but it's as best as it's going to get while it's not charged. That was a beautiful breakdown of chapter 22. So let's go on to chapter 23. And Sarah lives 127 years, the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. So Sarah is gone, y'all. Sarah lived 127 years and died in Kiriath Arba. Abram came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Oh, so Sarah was gone before him. Then Abraham rose up from beside his dead and spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I am a sojourner and settler among you. Give me property for a burial site among you, so that I bury my dead from my presence. And the sons of Heth answered Abraham, saying to him, Hear us, my master. You are a prince of Elohim among us. Bury your dead in the choices of our burial sites. None of us withholds from you his burial site from burying your dead. So Abraham rose and bowed himself to the people of the land, the son of Heth, and he spoke with them, saying, If it is your desire that I bury my dead from my presence, hear me. And approach Ephron, son of Sohar, for me, and let me have the cave of Machpelah, which he has, which is at the end of his field. Let him give it to me for the complete amount of silver as property for a burial site among you. And Ephron dwelt among the sons of Heth. And Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the sons of Heth, all who entered at the gate of his city, saying, No, my master, listen to me. I shall give you the field and the cave that is in it. I shall give it to you in the presence of the sons of my people. I shall give it to you, bury your dead. So he's giving it to him. He's saying, don't Don't worry about it. I don't want you to pay any amount of silver. He said, I'll pay you the full amount to bury her here. He said, no, I'm not. I'm going to give it to you. You can have that site. And Abraham bowed himself down before the people of the land, and he spoke to Ephron in the hearing of the people and of the land, saying, if only you would hear me, I shall give the amount of silver for the field. Take it from me, and let me bury my dead there. And Ephron answered Abraham, saying to him, my master, listen to me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? So bury your dead. You're like, they're like 400 shekels of silver. I'm good. I'm insisting. Bury your dead. Your wife just died. I don't want no money. I don't want no money. Your wife just died. And Abraham listened to Ephron. And Abraham weighed out the silver for Ephron, which he had named in the hearing of the sons Heth, 400 shekels of silver, currency of the merchants. Thus the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field and the cave, which was in it, and all the trees that were in the field, which were within all the surrounding borders, were deeded. So I think he did. So I think he's saying he did just say, okay, just give me 400 shekels. So he gave him the 400 shekels. Okay. Which were within the surrounding borders were deeded. Okay. To Abraham as a possession in the presence of the sons of Heth, before all who went in at the gate of the city. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. Thus the field and the cave that is in it were deeded to Abraham by the sons of Heth as property for a burial site. All right, so we're just going to break it down just to see if there's anything that I need to know in that moment. Is there any significance to what happened there? At first glance, Genesis 23 appears to be about Sarah's death and Abraham's purchasing a burial site, but beneath the historical account, it explores themes of honor, legacy, transition, covenant, permanence, and preparing for future generations. Sarah dies at 127 years old in Hebron. This is the only woman in Genesis whose age at death is specifically recorded. Sarah, the mother of the covenant family, dies after seeing God's promise fulfilled through Isaac. Abraham mourns and weeps for her. The Bible does not portray grief as a lack of faith. Mourning is presented as a natural expression of love. Okay, Sarah represents faith that waited, promise fulfilled, the season that produced the covenant heir. Her death symbolizes that every season, even blessed ones, comes to an end. Spiritually, God may close one chapter while continuing his larger purpose through what has been established. Abraham rises from mourning. After grieving, he gets up, negotiates for burial place. He grieves, then he acts. Healthy grief is acknowledged, but it does not become permanent paralysis. Lord, excuse me, y'all. It doesn't become permanent paralysis. Faith does not deny pain. It learns to move forward after honoring it. I am a stranger and a sojourner. Abraham tells the people, I am a stranger and a sojourner among you. This is significant. Although God had promised Abraham the land, he did not possess it fully. This reflects a broader spiritual principle. He may receive a promise long before we experience its complete fulfillment. It also reminds us that we not to place our ultimate identity in temporary positions or circumstances. Abraham negotiates with the Hittites for land. They respect him greatly and call him a mighty prince among us. Nothing Notice something. Abraham never gave himself this title. His reputation came from how others perceived him. Character often speaks louder than self promotion. Influence grows through integrity, consistency, and honorable conduct. Okay. Ephron the Hittite offers the cave, saying Abraham may have it without charge. However, Abraham insists on paying the full price. Why pay? God had promised Abraham the land. He could have accepted the gift. Instead, he purchased it openly. This teaches several principles. Integrity values transparency. Peace is strengthened when obligations are clear. Some inheritances require personal investments. Abraham refuses anything that could later create confusion about ownership. I like that. He a man. The burial place is the cave of Machpelah. This becomes the family burial site for Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah. It becomes a lasting marker of covenant history. A burial place represents remembrance, legacy, foundation, continuity between generations. Before Abraham owns fields, cities, or kingdoms, he owns a place that honors those who came before him. This can symbolize the importance of remembering the past while moving toward the future. Why is the first piece of promised land a grave? This is one of the chapter's deepest lessons. The first permanent property Abraham owns in the promised land is not a palace or a vineyard, it's a tomb. God's promises often unfold over time rather than all at once. Owning a burial place expresses confidence that God's covenant extends beyond one lifetime. Abraham invests in the future even though he will not see every promise fulfilled during his own life. The transaction happens before witnesses at the city gate. Everything is done openly. Truth does not need secrecy. Lasting agreements are strengthened by honesty and accountability. Silver is weighed. He weighed the silver according to the accepted standards. Nothing is vague, nothing is hidden. Integrity is shown in details as much as in grand acts. Faithfulness includes fairness in ordinary dealings. Okay, so basically he paid for that piece of land. So that's a big thing that he did. That is a huge thing that he did. Y'all, I'm a little bit uncomfortable, so excuse me for 1 second. I have this bathing suit on, and it's hurting my thighs because my thighs are big. All right, so excuse me for a second while I adjust accordingly. Okay, better. Okay. Exactly. It's all a story of your mindset. I love that. I absolutely love that. And even like I was thinking about just the connection with how he had to sacrifice. Like the story is talking about a son, but there's things in all of our lives that we have to let go of and have to be willing to let go of. We hold on to so much in our mind that has nothing to do with us. And we're holding on to those things and worrying about those things. And God is like, let them go. Like, just dead it. Dead it, cut it off, get rid of it. And I will show you what I can replace with that. Like, let's say in a relationship, you hold on to a relationship that's being negative to you, toxic to you, hurting you, and you keep thinking about it and worrying about it. And if that person, like, you know, you're so stuck on that person being better for you or whatever the case may be, and you're like, you're holding on to that, but you're not thinking about God. If you took the place of what was going on in your mind with the spirit of peace that God promised you, you wouldn't be worried about what was going on in your life when it came to a relationship, a circumstance, money, just whatever it is that you have. The first things that's on your mind, that is an idol if you're not at peace with yourself. If those things are not creating peace, it is not of God, and that is idolatry. So God says, let that go. If you let that go and create peace in your mind, I'm telling you what all I can bring with you. And you know what, y'all? I had put a little poster up today. And I don't have the poster in the background. Oh man, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so we create peace here. Put your hands together, make them peace, and it's a major thing. You realize like he was a very conscious individual. He was a very conscious individual. He wasn't worried about nothing. He didn't fear anything. You know, he was a little wild, a little crazy, but it's balanced. We all have the flesh character and the spiritual character. Okay, he was a very wise person. If you really knew what he talked about in the background, besides his crazy music, and all of his music wasn't crazy either. He had some really conscious music as well. So rest in peace, Tupac. But back to it. When you're thinking about peace and love in your heart, when you have joy in your heart, you don't have time to think about your problems. You don't have time to worry about someone else. You don't have time to think of the same mind that you use to think about the BS in your life or who's bothering you or what's bothering you. You could be thinking about how to praise, how to worship, how to be in love with yourself, how to be at peace with yourself in your own mind. Okay? So that's what the sacrifice talked about. You're not supposed to worship the gift. You're supposed to worship the giver behind the gift. And that giver was you stayed in faith. You always stay in faith. You always stay in peace with yourself. And that giver keeps giving. All right. So he was a man. He said, I don't want nothing for free. If I'm going to own it, I don't want any confusion. I'm going to give you this payment. You're going to take this payment and I'm going to own this piece of land. So that my wife, I don't play about my wife. I'm taking care of my wife and making sure that I pay for her burial site. So y'all can't take me from it later on and say, oh no, I changed my mind. No, this is my ownership. He was a real man, Abraham. I like that and I respect him for that. Okay, I need to put the charger on. Hey, I'll put Trump on the other side. I don't know why you think that's finna bother me. Saying something about some Trump. I love Trump. I ain't mad at it. I ain't mad at it. You can't bother me with little words. I don't know if it was supposed to bother me. I don't know. Anyway, so chapter 24. I got 2 more chapters to read and break down for y'all. And then it's 10:30. Y'all, time is going by like crazy. I'm not mad either. Okay. Time is going by like crazy. Didn't I just get on here? Okay, it was 9. It was 9:30 when I got on here. I thought I got on here 9 o'clock. Okay. And Abraham was old, advanced in years, and Yahweh, the Most High, had blessed Abraham in every way. And Abraham said to the oldest servant of his house, who ruled over all that he had, please put your hand under my thigh, so that I make you swear by the Most High, the Elohim of the heavens and the Elohim of the earth, that you do not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell. But to go to my land and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Yitzhak. And the servant said to him, what if the woman refuses to follow me to this land? Do I then take your son back to the land from which you came? And Abraham said to him, beware lest you take my son back there. The Most High Elohim of the heavens, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my relatives, and who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, to your seed I give this land. He sends his messenger before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. And if the woman refuses to follow you, then you shall be released from this oath. Only do not take my son back there. Then the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master and swore to him concerning this matter. Okay, so I'm going to stop because I don't want to lose my train of thought. So I'm going to stop right there and say, the Canaanites, I want to break that down. I want to understand that. So we need to remember that part. Okay, who were the Canaanites? He said he didn't want anything. He didn't want his son to do anything to do with them being married to him. Okay, so he said, don't have him marry the Canaanites. All right, so we need to understand who were the Canaanites, what spirit were they in, or whatever the case may be that made him swear, made him make the servant swear not to allow him to do that. And why he couldn't go back to the land. Okay, so we need to ask those questions, right? You know, again, a lot of us we read, but we're not asking these questions. You know, don't just read it. Figure out why. What's going on? What's that mean? What did he say right there? And what that, you know, what was the meaning behind that? What was the history behind that? So I can understand how to use that knowledge to this day. Verse 8. And if the woman refuses to follow you, then you shall be released from this oath. Okay. Then the servant put his hand on the oath concerning this matter. Okay. Verse 10. And the servant took 10 of his master's camels and left for all his master's goods. For all his master's good gifts were in the land, in his hand. And he arose and went to Aram Naharaim, to the city of Nahor. And he made his camels kneel down outside the city by a fountain of water at evening time, the time when women go out to draw water. And he said, Most High Elohim of my master Abraham, please cause her to meet before me this day and show loving commitment to my master Abraham. See, I am standing here by the fountain of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now let it be that the young woman to whom I say, please let down your jar to me to drink. And she says, drink, and let me water your camels too. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Yitzhak. And let me know by this that you have shown loving commitment to my master. And it came to be before he had ended speaking that, see, Ribkah, which is Rebecca in English, Ribkah, who was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her jar on her shoulder. And the young woman was very good looking, a maiden, no man having known her. Now remember, known means, y'all know what known means. No man known her. All right. And she went down to the fountain, filled her jar, and came up. And the servant ran to meet her and said, please let me drink a little water from your jar. And she said, drink, my master. And she hurried and let her jar down to her hand and gave him to drink. And when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, let me draw water for your camels too, until they have finished drinking. And she hurried and emptied her jar into the trough, ran back to the fountain and drew water and drew for all his camels. And watching her, the man remained silent in order to know whether the Most High had prospered his way or not. And it came to be, when the camels had finished drinking, that the man took a golden nose ring weighing half a shekel and 2 bracelets for his wrist weighing 10 shekels of gold and said, whose daughter are you? Please inform me. Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night? And she said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, Milcah's son, whom she bore to Nahor. And she said to him, we have both straw and fodder enough and room to spend the night. And the man bowed down his head and worshiped the Most High. And he said, blessed be the Most High Elohim of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his loving commitment and his truth toward my master. As for me, being on the way, Most High led me to the house of my master's brothers. Then the young woman ran and informed those of her mother's house these matters. So right here, he was looking for some kin. He said, don't go and marry anybody that's not that look like me, that's related to me. My son Isaac needs to be married into our family. So he's saying, okay, I'm going to look for people who have the character that I know they have. Okay, there's people who are very giving and generous. So if I ask her for water, she's gonna be the type that's gonna say, yes, I'll give you some water and I'm gonna give your camel some water. These are very kind, loving, just pleasing people. There's a lot of people in the world that are selfish, mean, no, I ain't helping you with nothing, you know. So he said the person who has the spirit, I'm gonna see who has that spirit first. Then I'm gonna see who she's related to and see if she's his people. And so he just has this intelligence about him that he knew how to search for who he needed to search for so that he didn't have to go around the whole city. He knew who he was going to attract and he spoke it into existence. The power of the tongue is real. He knew to speak what he needed and he made it happen. So when he bowed down and was like, oh, praise God, I found her. I found who I needed to find. These are my people. These are my master's people. And this is who I need to find for Isaac's wife, right? So I know the clock is wrong. The clock is dead. Let me see. Yo, hilarious. Okay, so let me stay on topic because I need to I'm gonna have to post these videos. Okay. So the man bowed down his head and worshiped. He said, blessed be the Most High Elohim, for the master of Abraham, who has not forsaken his loving commitment and the truth toward my master. As for me, being on the way, Most High led me to the house of my master's brothers. Then the young woman ran and informed those of her mother's house these matters. And Ribkah had a brother whose name was Laban. And Laban ran out to the man to the fountain. And it came to be when he saw the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrist, and when he heard the words of his sister Ribkah saying, thus the man spoke to me, that he went to the man and saw him standing by the camels at the fountain. And he said, come in, O blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside? I myself have prepared the house and a place for the camels. So the man came into the house while he unloaded the camels and provided straw and fodder for the camels and water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. And he set food before him to eat. But he said, let me not eat until I have spoken my word. And he said, speak on. And he said, I am Abraham's servant, and the Most High has blessed my master exceedingly, and he has become great. And he has given him flocks and herds, and silver and gold, and male and female servants, and camels and donkeys. And Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master when he was old, and he has given to him all that he has. And my master made me swear, saying, do not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose land I dwell, but go to my father's house and to my relatives and take a wife for my son. And I said to my master, what if the woman does not follow me? But he said to me, the Most High before whom I walk sends his messengers with you, and shall prosper your way. And you shall take a wife for my son from my relatives and from my father's house. Then, when you go to my relatives, you are to be released from this oath. And if they do not give her to you, then you are released from my oath. And this day I came to the fountain and said, Most High Elohim of my master Abraham, please, if you are prospering the way in which I am going, see, I am standing by the fountain of water. And when the young woman comes out to draw water, and say to her, please give me a little water from my jar to drink, or from your jar to drink. And she says to me, drink, and let me draw from your camels too. Let her be the woman whom the Most High has appointed for my master's son. So he basically like, Lord, if it be your will, whoever coming out here, that's who it's gonna be. Like if this is divinely right, just bring her in my world. So he's telling her this. I'm telling the family this now. Like, I manifested this, and this is all the stuff that I needed to let y'all know. So this is the lady right here that needs to be the wife, right? So he said, I had not yet ended speaking in my heart, then see, Ribkah was coming out with her jar on her shoulder. And she went down to the fountain and drew water. And I said to her, please let me drink. And she hurried and let her jar down from her shoulder and said, drink. And let me water your camels too. So I drank, and she watered the camels too. And I asked her, and she said, and I asked her and said, whose daughter are you? And she said, the daughter of Bethuel, Nahor's son, whom Milcah bore to him. Then I put the nose ring on her nose and the bracelets on her wrists. And I bowed my head and worshiped the Lord and blessed the Most High, Elohim of my master Abraham, who had led me in the true way to take the daughter of my master's brother for his son. And now, if you are going to show loving commitment and truth to my master, let me know. And if not, let me know, so that I turn to the right or to the left. And Laban answered Bethuel too and said, the matter comes from the Most High. We are not able to speak to you either evil or good. See, Ribkah is before you. Take her and go, and let her be your master's son's wife, as the Most High has spoken. And it came to be, when Abraham's servant heard their words, that he bowed himself towards the earth before the Most High. And the servant brought out ornaments of silver and ornaments of gold and garments and gave them to Ribkah. He also gave costly gifts to her brother and her mother. And he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night. When they arose in the morning, he said, let me go to my master. But her brother and her mother said, let the young woman stay with us a few days, at least 10, then you go. And he said to them, do not delay me, since the Most High has prospered my way. Let me go so that I go to my master. And they said, let us call the young woman and ask her. So they called Ribkah and said to her, are you going with this man? And she said, I shall go. So they let go Ribkah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Ribkah and said to her, let our sister become the mother of thousands of 10,000s, and let her seed possess the gates of those who hate them. And Ribkah and her young women arose, and they rode on the camels and followed the man. So the servant took Ribkah and left. And Yishak came from the land of Beer, Lahai Roy, that I can't say that. Hold on. Beer, Lahai Roy. I don't know how to say that, but it's a Hebrew. For he dwelt in the south. And Yishak this is Isaac, went out to mediate in the field in the evening, and he lifted his eyes and looked and saw the camels coming. And Ribkah lifted her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from her camel, and she said to the servant, who is this man walking in the field to meet us? And the servant said, it is my master. So she took a veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the matters he had done. And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent. And he took Ribkah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Thus Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Ah, that's so sweet. See, these are just good stories, y'all. I'm telling y'all. Okay, so breakdown. Okay, so I'm going to break this down because I need to know why he did not want the Canaanites to be married into his lineage. I need to know why it was so important for him to take his relatives, and why it was like adamant that Abraham said, don't take my son back there. So it's things like that that he didn't really explain why, that I want to see if I can understand it, or if, you know, there's messages there that need to be known. Hey, Toby. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So breakdown 24. Why Isaac, matter of fact, why Abraham didn't want Isaac to marry a Canaanite, and why he needed to marry a relative but wasn't allowed to go back to that land. What other questions did we have? I think that's pretty much it. Just break down the rest of that, but I need to understand what was wrong with the Canaanites and what was wrong with him going back to the land. You know, what was going on there? I need to know that. I'm not religious, so I'm not held to this Bible. The Bible is just stories. The book, I really call it the book. I don't even call it the Bible because people take the Bible too serious. I mean it's serious, but I'm not going there about religion though. It's not religious. Like people have taken religion to control you. So that's the problem is you just commented something to try to control me and control what I do in my life. And that's the problem with religion. I'm not a religious entity. The book is just a book of stories, and you're supposed to take it as far as positivity in order to guide yourself into peace in life. It has nothing to do with you controlling me and condemning me and judging me. So thank you for your engagement. Exactly. Bible means book. Exactly. That's why I just say the book. It just is a book of secrets, a book of history, a book of a holy book, which holy means, what did holy mean? I forget. It was like holy Bible is like book of something. Set apart, consecrated, sacred book. It's a sacred book, and sacred means secrets. That's what, like I said, book of secrets. Okay, but anyways, now that we off of that, because I'm not here to argue about no book. Y'all start to put that negative entity on my soul, and I rebuke the devil. I rebuke it. I resist the devil, and he flee. I rebuke that energy. Y'all trying to put arguments on me and negativity on me, and I rebuke that. I am a positive entity. This book is to find peace in our lives, to find joy in our lives, and it's to just be free, to free yourself. Taking yourself too seriously and trying to control somebody, condemn somebody, or cast whatever stone you're trying to cast, you can go to hell with that. I'm not doing that today. Leave me alone. I'm on my channel. If you don't want to be on my channel, get off. Like, goodbye. I'm not on that. I'm doing what I want to do on my channel. Leave me alone. You can't tell me what to do on my channel. Go on your own channel and do that. Thank you. All right. So let's break down chapter 24 before I was rudely interrupted. And I really, truly apologize for those who have rudely interrupted me while I was getting to my breakdown, because I was really finna open up some insight here. Okay. Thank y'all for jumping off, whoever that was getting on my nerves. All right. So 24 is the longest chapter in Genesis. While it is about finding a wife for Isaac, it is also about covenant, discernment, generational continuity, identity, and trusting God's guidance. So somebody said that it was Cain. Somebody said, because they were the children of Cain. I thought all of Cain got wiped off. But who did Noah come from? Because it was Noah and his family that survived the flood. Hold on now, y'all. Hold on. Who was Noah? What lineage did Noah come from? What lineage did Noah come from? Seth or Cain? Noah came from Seth, not Cain. So that he didn't come from Cain. The Canaanites were from Canaan, who was we just talked about it. Canaan came from help me out, y'all. Canaan came from, oh shoot, I done lost it. I done lost my train of thought. Who did Canaan come from? Noah. Yeah. Canaan came from Noah. So Noah's the one that cursed Canaan. So that's the Canaanites coming from Canaan, which I believe Canaan and Noah did something in that tent. Canaan was doing something in that tent with Noah while he was drunk. And so he got cursed. It doesn't say that, but it says that he was naked and that Ham saw his nakedness. But what I'm believing is happening is, because when Noah found out what happened, he went out and cursed Canaan. He said Canaan is cursed. Why? Because there was something that went down, and it even says that in the breakdown that they believe that there was something that happened with Canaan and Noah while Noah was drunk, and Canaan took advantage of his drunk grandfather. Leave me alone. Y'all so judgmental. Leave me alone. I had to put on whatever I had to put on. I'm in the comfort of my home. All right, so let's break down 24, man. Y'all got me all discombobulated over here. Okay, I know it's getting late. I done got y'all up here late. All right, we almost done. As a matter of fact, I might just go ahead and just finish this breakdown because it is late. I'm going to finish this breakdown right here on chapter 24, and we'll pick up on 25 tomorrow. So 24 is the longest chapter in Genesis. While it is about finding a wife for Isaac, it is also about covenant, discernment, generational continuity, identity, and trusting God's guidance. Your questions are some of the most important in the chapter. Why couldn't Isaac marry a Canaanite? Why did Abraham want a relative instead? Why was Isaac forbidden from returning to Abraham's homeland? These questions are closely connected to God's covenant with Abraham. Abraham is old. He tells his trusted servant to swear an oath that he will find a wife for Isaac, not from the daughters of Canaan. Instead, he must go back to Abraham's relatives in Mesopotamia. The servant asks, "What if she won't come?" He answers, "Do not take my son back there." God leads him to Rebekah. She willingly leaves her home and becomes Isaac's wife. Why couldn't Isaac marry a Canaanite? This is often misunderstood. The primary concern presented in Genesis is not ethnicity. It is covenant identity and the religious and moral environment. Throughout Genesis, the Canaanites are depicted as inhabitants of the land God had promised to Abraham, and later biblical books describe many Canaanite religious practices is incompatible with Israel's covenant life. Abraham had been called out of this former way of life into a new covenant relationship with God. Marriage would shape the next generation of that covenant family. Marriage represents union. Spiritually, this teaches that the closest partnerships in life profoundly influence our directions and values. The question becomes, what are you joining yourself? Okay, they didn't answer the rest of the questions. I need to understand all of this. Why did you cut it off? I don't understand what happened there. At first glance, hold on. Okay, the relative part we got already. To preserve the covenant line. Okay. So why wasn't Isaac allowed to go back to that land? This is one of the most significant statements in the chapter. The servant asks, what if the woman won't come with me? Should I take Isaac there? See that Abraham answers, see to it that you do not take my son back there. Why? God had called Abraham out of that land. Leave your country and go to the land I will show you. Going back would symbolize reversing God's call. Abraham understood that God's promise was connected to the land God had chosen, not the land he had left. Sometimes God calls us out of old environments, identities, or ways of living. Once you've answered that call, returning to what God called you out of can represent returning to an old dependence or old identity. Faith moves forward. Isaac had been born in the land God promised. He represented the continuation of that promise. If Isaac left, there was a real possibility he might settle there permanently. Abraham wasn't willing to risk that. The covenant wasn't only about people, it was also connected to the place God had designated. The promised land represents your God-given purpose. The old land represents familiar patterns, comfort, or the past. Sometimes the greatest temptation isn't obvious wrongdoing, it's returning to what's familiar because it feels safer. It encourages staying rooted where God has called you. The wife was to come into Isaac's calling. Notice something important. Isaac was not sent to find his wife. Rebecca came to him. She left her father's house and entered the life God had prepared for Isaac. This reverses the idea that Isaac should leave his calling to secure a relationship. One lesson is that you should not abandon your purpose simply to make a relationship work. Healthy relationships often involve both people moving toward a shared calling rather than one person giving up the path they believe God has set before them. So that's really good. That's really good. So I believe, yeah, we're gonna pick back up chapter 25 tomorrow because it is pretty late. So I hope y'all enjoyed 21 through 24. We will finish chapter 25 through 30 tomorrow. How did y'all feel about that? What do y'all think about how I break everything down and we have those discussions? Are y'all feeling that? Or should I engage more with the chat, or are y'all enjoying the fact that I stop and kind of just break things down by doing a little bit of research? But I do feel like I stop a little bit here and there. What's up, Tay? It's a cool breakdown. Appreciate that. So yeah, like I stop a little bit and watch the chat, but I try to kind of a lot of people be coming on at talking crazy. So I basically will avoid just stop and reading the chat so much because I do want to get the full breakdown finished and the reading finished in a specific amount of time. But yeah, like I try to stop and kind of listen to the people who really are engaging and speaking about things because y'all are helping me as well. I have read the Bible, the book, about 4 times myself. This is my 5th time reading it through, and I'm just reading it on camera now. So I'm wanting to really get some opening up that I haven't opened up before when it comes to really getting like that spiritual guidance to how to, again, take this information and use it for everyday life. How to use it for my everyday life. And it's so beautiful. Like just hearing the stories, it makes you think like these people, I think I'm going through it, but these people have gone through so much and they still push through. They still have their faith. This man was told to take his son and sacrifice him, and he was willing to do that. And like a lot of us aren't even willing to do certain things that we're supposed to do in missions that we're supposed to accomplish in life. We're lazy. And it's like this man was willing to sacrifice his own son. Hold on real quick, y'all. Hold on real quick. I mean, it looks like we got a few. Hey, if y'all want me to read this last chapter, let me know. If not, I know it's late. Y'all might be tired. If y'all tired, I'll stop and we can do 25 through 30 tomorrow. But if y'all want me to read this last chapter, I don't mind reading this last chapter with y'all too now. Oh, now we okay, yeah. I mean, if you want, if we go on for chapter 25, we can finish on chapter 25. Just let me know if y'all vibing with me. Let me see, 25. Yeah, it's not super long. Read it. Okay, bet. All right, so let's finish up on 25. I did put that in the title. I did make that promise, so let's keep my word. I'll do it. Okay. And Abraham took another wife. I forgot this part. Man, sir, you're old as dirt. I forgot about this part. Sir, why did you take another wife? You might as well just stay by yourself. I'm mad. Sarah rolling over in her tomb. What's wrong with him? All right, let's go for real. All right. And Abram took another wife, whose name was Keturah, and she bore him Zimron. Dang, he's still having kids? And he hundreds of years old? No way. I forgot about all of this. She bore him Zimron and Jokshan and Medan and Midian and Jishbak and Shuah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This man had 6 more kids. Then he had Isaac and Ishmael. So that's 8 kids. And he hundreds of years old. I don't like that. No, let me just, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, all right. I'm blowed. Why did I forget this whole part of the story? And Jokshan, now mind y'all, now y'all hear these names. These names ain't no John and Susan and Emily. Like, y'all hear the name. These are African names. Keturah, Zimron, Jokshan, Midian, Jishbak, and Shuah. And Jokshan brought forth Sheba and Dedan. And the sons of Dedan were Asherim and Letushim and Leumim. And the sons of Midian were Ephah and Epher and Henoch and Abida and Eldiah. All these were the children of Keturah. Now, Abraham gave all that he had to Jitshak, which is Isaac. But to the sons of the concubines whom Abraham had, Abraham gave gifts while he was still living and sent them away from his son Isaac eastward to the land of the east. And these are all the years of Abraham's life which he lived, 175 years. And Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age, aged and satisfied. I bet you was. Aged and satisfied, and was gathered to his people. And his sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in the cave of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Sohar and Hittite, and the field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Heth. There Abraham was buried with Sarah his wife. Oh, but you, oh. Oh, but you want to be buried next to your wife after you done did all that dirt. After bury him next to his wife after he done had some more kids and all that and lived a whole little family. Ain't this something? And it came to be after the death of Abraham that Elohim blessed his son Isaac, and Isaac dwelt at Beer Lahai Roi, and This is the genealogy of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar, the Mitzrite, Sarah's female servant, bore to Abraham. And these were the names of the sons of Ishmael, by their names according to their generations. The firstborn of Ishmael, Nebaioth, then Kedar, then Adbeel, and Mizpam, and Mishma, and Duma, and Massa, Hadar, and Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedema. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these were their names, by their towns and their settlements, 12 chiefs, according to their tribes. And these were the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. And he breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people. And they dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Mitzrayim, which is Egypt, as you go toward Asher. He settled before all his brothers. And this is the genealogy of Yitzchak, Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham brought forth Isaac, and Isaac was 42 years old when he took Ribkah, his wife, the daughter of Bethuel, and Aramean of Bethuel, the Aramean of Padan Aram, the sister of Laban the Aramean. And Isaac prayed to the Most High for his wife because she was barren. Sound familiar? And Ribkah, his wife, conceived. And within her, the children struggled together. And she said, if all this right, why am I this way? Does that sound familiar? If all is right, why am I this way? So she went to ask the Most High. And the Most High said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples shall be separated from your body. And 1 people shall be stronger than the other, and the older serve the younger. And when the days were filled for her to give birth, and see, twins were in her womb. And the first came out red all over, like a hairy garment. So they called his name Esau. And afterward his brother came out with his hand holding on to Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. And the boys grew up, and Esau became a man, knowing how to hunt, a man of the field, while Jacob was a complete man, dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his wild game, but Ribkah loved Jacob. And Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, please feed me with that same red stew, for I am weary. That is why his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, sell me your birthright today. And Esau said, look, I am going to die, so why should I have a birthright? Then Jacob said, swear to me today. And he swore to him, and he sold his birthright to Jacob. Jacob then gave Esau bread and stew of lentils, and he ate and drank, and rose up and left. Thus Esau despised his birthright. So Esau, from what I remember, Esau means redhead. Okay, Esau. Oh, let's break down chapter 25. Break down chapter 25. Explain the meaning of Esau and the meaning of Jacob. And also I want to mention that you saw that he's talked about 2 nations, right? Because in the beginning, with the curse, there was a prophecy that I've been told before was a connection between the two people, Esau and Jacob. And his seed, no, he shall crush his head and you shall crush his heel. There's a seed there in these two nations that are intertwining with each other. Okay. So that needs to be known and spoke of in this moment as well. So explain the relevance to the nations according to the curse, crushing his head and his heel. Okay. Genesis 25 marks a major transition in Genesis. It closes Abraham's story and begins shifting the focus to Isaac and especially Jacob and Esau. The chapter explores inheritance, birthrights, human desire, divine purpose, and the struggle between two ways of living. Your question about Jacob, Esau, and the connection to the prophecy in Genesis 3:15 is one that has been discussed by Jewish and Christian interpreters for centuries. The text itself makes some direct connections and leaves room for symbolic interpretation. This is a psychological book. This is a way of thinking. Abraham marries Keturah and has more children. However, Isaac remains the covenant heir. Abraham gives gifts to his other sons, but gives the covenant inheritance to Isaac. Not every blessing is the covenant blessing. Some people receive material gifts. Others receive responsibility and the calling that accompanies God's covenant. Inheritance is about purpose, not just possessions. Ishmael's descendants. The chapter briefly records Ishmael's descendants before returning to Isaac's family. This follows a pattern in Genesis. One family line is acknowledged, then the narrative returns to the covenant line. The text shows that God's promises to Ishmael were also fulfilled in the form of numerous descendants, even though the covenant continued through Isaac. Isaac and Rebekah cannot have children. Like Sarah before, Rebekah is initially barren. Isaac prays, God answers. Throughout Genesis, God repeatedly brings life where people cannot produce it on their own. This reinforces that the covenant advances by God's initiative rather than merely by human ability. The twins struggle in the womb. Before birth, the twins struggle inside Rebekah. She asks God, why is this happening? God answers, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 people shall be separated from your body. 1 people shall be stronger than the other, and the older serve the younger. This is one of the key passages in Genesis. Notice that God immediately interprets the twins as representing nations, not only individuals. Esau and Jacob represent nations. Esau becomes the ancestor to the nation of Edom, which that's what he was saying when he said he was weary. Edom is a weary location. Jacob becomes the ancestor of Israel. Fights with God is the meaning of Israel. The struggle between the brothers become a picture of the later relationship between these nations. Throughout the Hebrew Bible, Israel and Edom experience repeated conflict. Though there are also moments of coexistence. Meaning of Esau, the name Esau is associated with being hairy, reflecting his appearance at birth. He is also called Edom, meaning red, after the red stew for which he sells his birthright. Okay, so Esau often symbolizes immediate gratification, physical appetite, living for the present, strength without spiritual priority, impulsiveness. Esau is a capable hunter and outdoorsman. One of these qualities are presented as wrong in themselves. The problem arises when he treats something sacred, his birthright, as less valuable than immediate satisfaction. Jacob's name, Jacob, is linked to the Hebrew word for heel. At birth, he is grasping Esau's heel. Later in Genesis, after wrestling with God, Jacob receives a new name. Jacob becomes Israel, meaning one who struggles with God or God strives. Jacob's life is one of transformation. He begins as someone who grasps, he grows into someone who wrestles, changes, and receives a new identity. He wrestles, changes, and receives a new identity. So that's why I speak often on fighting for your positivity. When life is trying to get you down on the outside, your circumstances, your mind wants to absorb those negative circumstances and keep thinking and speaking negatively. So fighting with God is fighting with yourself and your spirit by fighting through all of your outer circumstances trying to keep you at a certain frequency. You fight with that and you fight for your peace because God lives in peace. So fights with God is fighting for your peace. So he continued to remain peaceful and stay positive until he received a new circumstance on the outside. This echoes an earlier prophecy in Genesis. After humanity's disobedience, God says to the serpent, "He shall bruise or crush your head, and you shall bruise his heel." These are different stories, but the imagery of the heel invites comparison. The heel throughout scriptures, the heel can symbolize vulnerability, following closely behind, pursuit, the point of contact in walking. Jacob holding Esau's heel can symbolize someone following closely after, seeking what lies ahead. The head symbolizes authority, leadership, direction, the source of control. To strike the head represents a decisive defeat. The text of Genesis does not explicitly identify Jacob as the fulfillment of Genesis 3:15. However, there are symbolic parallels. Genesis repeatedly develops themes first introduced in Genesis 3: conflict, brothers' intention, blessings, seed, victory through God's purpose. Many interpreters understand Genesis 3:15 as introducing an ongoing conflict between opposing lines of humanity that unfolds throughout Genesis and beyond. In that broader sense, Jacob and Esau become one example of this continuing struggle. In the ancient Near East, the firstborn normally received the greater inheritance and leadership. God's declaration reverses that expectation. This pattern appears elsewhere. Abel rather than Cain. Isaac rather than Ishmael. Jacob rather than Esau. Joseph rather than his older brothers. Ephraim rather than Manasseh. The repeated theme is that God's purposes are not always determined by human customs or assumptions. So they're saying the firstborn was supposed to get all the gifts, but all of these stories, the secondborn or the youngest received all of the gifts. Esau sells his birthright. Esau returns hungry. Jacob offers stew in exchange for the birthright. Esau agrees. The text concludes, thus Esau despised his birthright. The emphasis falls not simply on the trade itself, but on Esau's attitude towards something of lasting value. Genesis 25 is not simply about two brothers. It introduces a recurring biblical theme, the tension between immediate desire and enduring covenant purpose. Esau embodies strength, skill, and the pull of the present moment. Jacob begins as a grasping younger brother, yet his story becomes one of the transformation through struggles. The narrative does not present either brother as flawless. Instead, it shows how God's purposes continue to unfold through imperfect people while inviting readers to consider the value of their own birthright, the responsibilities, opportunities, and calling entrusted to them, and whether they will exchange lasting purpose for temporary satisfaction. All right, y'all. This was great. I enjoyed y'all's company. I appreciate y'all's time. I love y'all too. I'm asking one more thing because I really want to get deeper into the meaning of he shall crush his head and you shall crush his heel. Um, I will put enmity between you and a woman and between your offspring and her offspring. When it's talking about a serpent, you know what I mean? Like the wisdom. So I just want to get some insight on that. The verse introduces an ongoing conflict between the ways of of deception and evil, those who seek to walk in God's ways. To crush the head symbolizes bringing that power to an end. Allegorically, it means that the evil and rebellion will not have the final victory. Truth ultimately overcomes falsehood. Life overcomes death. God's purpose prevail over the forces that oppose them. Those who follow God's purposes may suffer opposition, hardship, and injury along the way. The struggle is real, but it is not the final outcome. The wound to the heel slows a person down to cause pain, but it does not necessarily end the journey. The heel represents vulnerability, the path someone walks, the point of contact with the ground. Jacob's life begins with grasping the heel. His life then becomes one of struggle, transformation, and eventually receiving a new name, Israel. So it's like if you look at it, if you look at them both as if they're two pathways of self, it's like they're all fighting with each other. Just imagine like your good and evil side, your positive side and your negative side fighting with each other. Cain and Abel. Let's say Cain and Abel both lived in your mind at the same time. And you got Cain and Abel that were like fighting. Or Ishmael and Isaac both living in your head. Esau and Jacob living in your head, right? Like you're discerning and you're fighting for who how should I move next? Are you transgender? I'm trying to understand why you keep trying to find me. Like, are you looking for your kind? I don't understand. Like, why you keep asking that? um, Let me see what else I can look up. I need a better breakdown understanding. I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. A seed is anything that reproduces its nature. Notice something carefully. The text never says the serpent gives birth to physical children. Instead, allegorically, the serpent's seed can be understood as everything that produces the serpent's character. Now we're talking. Now we're getting there. The serpent introduced deception, rebellion, manipulation, fear, pride, accusation, disorder. Those qualities become the serpent's offspring wherever they take root and reproduce. Think of it like planting a seed. If you plant an apple seed, you get apples. If deception is planted, deception grows. So the serpent seed is not primarily about biology. It represents the spread of a certain nature and way of living. What is the woman's seed? The woman also produces seed. Her seed represents what grows out of God's intended design for humanity. That includes qualities such as truth, faithfulness, justice, wisdom, life, obedience, compassion. So the woman and the serpent represent two opposing sources, each producing a different kind of fruit. So what is enmity? Enmity. Enmity. I got it. Enmity. All right. So what is enmity? Hostility, opposition, continual conflict. God is saying these two ways of being will never peacefully coexist. I'm going to put enmity between your seed and her seed. These two ways of being will never peacefully coexist. Truth and deception cannot ultimately agree. Justice and injustice cannot become the same thing. Life and destruction move in opposite directions. Okay, so altogether, there are two seeds growing in the world. Imagine two gardens. Garden 1, the serpent seed. Its fruit includes lies, greed, hatred, violence, selfishness, domination, and corruption. Every time these qualities spread, more seeds are planted. Garden 2 is the woman's seed. Love, truth, wisdom, mercy, integrity, humility, and peace. These qualities also reproduce themselves. Every act of truth plants another seed. Every act of justice plants another seed. Genesis then shows this pattern repeatedly. Immediately after Genesis 3 comes Cain and Abel. Cain murders Abel. One brother acts out of jealousy and violence. The other is described as righteous. The story becomes an example of two different seeds bearing different kinds of fruit. Then the pattern continues. Ishmael and Isaac, Esau and Jacob, Joseph and his brothers. Genesis repeatedly contrasts different responses to God, different priorities, and different ways of living. These stories are not saying that one bloodline is inherently good and another is inherently evil. Rather, they portray recurring conflicts between different orientations of the human heart. The battle is also internal. One of the richest allegorical readings is that both seeds are potential influences within every person. Every day we choose which seed to cultivate. When you choose honesty over deception, forgiveness over revenge, humility over pride, you are nurturing one kind of fruit. When you choose manipulation, hatred, selfishness, you are nurturing another. The enmity is not only out in the world, it is also within the human heart. Why does the serpent strike the heel? The heel represents your walk. It is what touches the ground as you move forward. The serpent attacks your walk. In other words, your progress, your purpose, your faithfulness, your direction. Temptation rarely begins by attacking your destination directly. It often begins by trying to trip you as you walk toward it. Why crush the head? The head is the source of direction and control. If the head is crushed, the influence ends. Allegorically, this is not merely surviving temptation, but overcoming the very patterns of deception and rebellion that give it power. It introduces a theme that runs through the rest of the Bible. There is an enduring conflict between two ways of living. One seed reproduces deception, violence, and self-centeredness. The other reproduces truth, faithfulness, justice, and life. Wow. As you continue reading Genesis, you can watch this theme unfold. Cain and Abel, Ishmael and Isaac, Esau and Jacob, and Joseph and his brothers all become different expressions of that larger struggle. These stories invite readers to ask not simply which family line am I looking at, but what kind of fruit is this life producing? That is the allegorical power of the language of seed. It points beyond genealogy to the character, values, and patterns that people cultivate and pass on. That was perfect. Let me get that POC poster. It was $5 at Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree done came up on the come up. Did you work out? I went outside to the pool. I didn't go live to go work out. I'm gonna do right maybe tomorrow. I be short for time. I actually have to get ready for work right now. It is 11:30 and I'm late. Very late. So oh my God, I'm stupid late. I still haven't done my hair. Y'all, I love y'all. Me must go. Make sure that you guys stay grateful, stay glowing, and stay growing until the next great awakening. Love y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed this. I will see y'all tomorrow for chapters 26 through 30. Peace.